All right, everybody, we are live. I am the One Fun Guy podcast. I am in my studio tonight with my guest, Matt Zane of Society One. Matt, introduce yourself and we'll get into your story.
My name is Matt Zane, aka Lord Zane, and I am the lead vocalist of a band called Society One, but also a filmmaker, music video director, poem book author. I've done commercials, documentaries, so kind of a guy of all trades. So it really depends on which angle you come in at.
Sure.
Depends on how this all goes. But I do all those things for the majority of people who I'm sure are unaware of who the hell I am.
So I've been pretty much promoting this the entire time with your stuff, from the clips of your movie to all the other rock stars that have basically like kind of given you the thumbs up and approval of how awesome you were to work with. Obviously, I just posted the one with Tommy Lee that you just put out, right? So he was like, you've seen the dirt, but I haven't seen anything like what Matt put out. So we'll eventually get to all that. Let's start from the beginning. Take us to the time when you first got to LA. I know you were pretty much a teenager, and kind of just tell us how you got into the LA scene. Like what made you go there and how you started this whole adventure.
Yeah, I got to LA, man, in 92. And I think I was 17 years old. And I got out here and I went down to the Sunset Strip. And the Sunset Strip was still the Sunset Strip for like 8 to 9 months when I first got here, like exactly like Decline of Western Civilization 2. I mean, it was still the big hair and all that stuff, even though alternative come in, people were really hanging on to it. So I was able to see it, for a good, 7, 8, 9 months, something like that. And it was wild, man. And I was actually playing clubs within 3 months of getting out to LA. And I was only 17 years old. So I would go to these clubs and they'd make me sit outside on the steps. And they'd make fun of me before I could get into the club, because it was a whole different scene back then. It was like hair metal and shit. Yeah, so it was a wild, wild thing, man. I was going to MIT, the music school. And, so I was down literally in the middle of Hollywood every day. And I was going down to the Strip at night, playing clubs, playing with the last of the big hair bands, just trying to figure out, like what was going on and like what was happening and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was an absolute culture shock, because of the fact that I grew up in a little village in upstate New York. So it was a pretty wild thing. And it was always the plan to get out there because of the fact that I was absolutely enamored and obsessed with the Doors. And the Doors movie came out the year before in 91. So I was really familiar with like the Whiskey A Go-Go because of the movie, but I was also already familiar with the Strip because of Decline of Western Civilization. Very familiar with Venice Beach because of the Doors movie. But I was also aware of Hollywood because a lot of, like almost nobody knows this, but there was an incredibly award-winning, Oscar-winning actor that went to my high school named Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Okay.
And he's won an Oscar, and he's unfortunately passed now. He went to my high school. He lived about 1.5 miles away from me, but he was just in the grade above me when I went into the high school. He was just getting out because it was a weird thing in the high school. It was only 10 to 12 rather from 9 to 12.
Okay.
So, when I'd run around high school all the time and I would tell, I'm leaving here. I'm going down to Hollywood. I'm going to make it, they'd all the teachers would make fun of me. They'd be like, yeah, you and Philip Seymour Hoffman, because he hadn't done anything yet. He was just only like 20, maybe 19, So I had already heard it, a lot from, the teachers, and I was very aware of LA, and it wasn't even like I was the first guy from my school to do it. He actually beat me by a year or two, like by getting out to LA. So anyways, I ended up landing out there, and that's what really started the journey of, being out on the local scene. And, not to skip ahead and take over your interview or whatever, but you can stop me.
Keep going.
I'll tell you this one part. I got out there and alternative was just breaking because of Nirvana and everything like that. And I actually looked very similar to Maynard from Tool. We looked really very close. So when I initially got out, when I would go to Guitar Center or the clubs, people would mistake me for him. And they would treat me really well until they figured out I wasn't the same guy. And that was kind of my first introduction to what you were getting treated like when they thought you were just a 17-year-old kid, by not allowing you and going into the clubs and making fun of you before you went on stage, to being mistaken for Maynard and being treated really well. So I really understood that dichotomy very early on within the Hollywood scene, and the way that the music industry and society treated people in terms of their perceived importance. So it was an incredible wake up call, because in my mind, only being 17 years old, I had all these plans of all these things I was going to do. But it was a real difficult thing to be able to deal with. And it didn't really get much better from there. I was on the scene early enough. And again, people don't realize how old I am, and they don't realize, that was before Korn got signed. You know what I mean? And Korn was out there trying to make it. And I went to school with Rivers from Weezer. Okay. Literally, we're in big band together before he was signed. He sat in front of me. I knew the guys from Incubus. We were in the same, they were a year earlier than me. So I knew them when they were in high school. So, they're playing all the same clubs and we're running into each other, So I'm literally in school and knowing Weezer, Incubus, obviously I didn't know the guys from Korn until later, but knew of them, it was all happening in those early years, like very early on after, that new metal, not the new metal, the hair metal thing kind of went out, So yeah, man, it was a really wild time in Hollywood at that point. Cause you gotta understand, like you didn't know these people were going to become famous. You know what I mean? And they were just kids like you. So, you were just running around, just doing your thing and not thinking anything of it. Rivers was just a guy in my class who went to MIT the year before me and had the big ass hair. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it was really weird. And it didn't end there. I literally was going to school the same year that the original White Zombie drummer was going.
Okay.
Ivan Dupree.
Ivan, yeah.
So it was just crazy, man. And that was just the beginning. That was just like 92, 93, like 94. You know what I mean? Like it never really slowed down from there. So it was pretty wild from the get-go.
Awesome. So when you get to Hollywood and you say you're in the clubs, are you just as a fan now going, or are you starting to pick up an instrument and write your poetry? Are you into the music scene as like trying to be an act, or are you just a fan at this point?
Oh no, I was playing the clubs after the first 3 months that I got there. So I was in MIT immediately playing, guitar, the whole bit. Then I was playing clubs about 3 months later, so I was from music from the absolute get-go, like that was the very first thing that I did out there. The reason why people get really confused about it is there are a couple of reasons. And it's kind of fascinating in a sense. And I talk about it in my movie, but, I was there, like I just said, with Weezer, knew the guys from Incubus, saw Korn coming up, doing all those things. And then what ended up happening is why people didn't think I did music first was those guys, they all got signed, and my band got overlooked. I didn't get signed, but yet here I was. I didn't really understand at the time why that would happen. I'm literally playing the Whiskey A Go-Go, and up the street, Korn's playing the Roxy, or Incubus is playing the Troubadour, or I walk into class one day and Weezer and Rivers is like, yeah, I can't come see your show because we just got signed and, they had to go to the studio or whatever, you know what I mean? So it was really sobering in the sense that I saw the first wave of people of that new metal stuff, get picked up, and I was doing music too. But when they all got signed and I saw that their career went off, it wasn't really until Korn's first album came out that I really knew that I fell a step behind. And it just really freaked me out because I'm a young kid, 17, 18, 19. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Why didn't I get signed? Why didn't the guys from, Incubus are on their way. Rivers got signed. Korn has their first album out. So I actually quit music for like a year and I shaved my head. So when people see me actually come out in music in 95, 96, they think, oh, he was just a dorky, short-haired wannabe that then grew his hair long and started doing music. There was a whole thing prior to the adult industry and that I did, that I was right there with everybody, but nobody places me there because those guys are a little bit older than me. The guys from Incubus aren't, but everybody else, Weezer and Korn and whoever else was around. So they just assumed that I really wasn't on the scene at that time, but I was. I was just literally going to these clubs and then sitting on the outside step, waiting to get up into the club to be able to play my shows. So it's just not something that people place me because they also don't realize I'm 50 years old. So it's actually feasible. I really was there in 92, in the beginning of 92 doing it.
Sure.
But that's where the confusion, like you just said, were you a fan just going to shows? Were you doing? No, I was there. I was in there doing it. But people never make the connection because the head was shaved. And that's one of the things that I left out in the original theatrical release of the movie because, the original cut of the movie was made more to be like if you were scrolling on Instagram, because I know that people's attention span weren't really going to get into a lot of me personally because it wasn't really a typical documentary. It was seen through the lens of shock rock. But if you look at the extended cut, I actually tell more of the backstory, the one that's on the website, and I actually show a clip of me shaving my head, so people get it, why it was like, how was it that you were playing the Whiskey A Go-Go, with hair like this? And then, when the music starts with Society 1 in 95, 96, you've got short hair, so anyways, that's not that it's really that important, but, if we're going to be a purist and really talk for a long time,
this is what I want, right? We want to talk about this.
Yeah. It just tickles me because I was there. I was in freaking school with Rivers, this guy that went on to sell, I was an OG, but people think, oh, no, because I didn't make it then, but I was on the strip the same as all those other dudes.
Right. So how did Society 1 come about? How did you get the name? How did you pick your band members? Was it like a group of friends that you had? Did you put out obviously this is kind of pre-internet, right? So you're in that realm of not having the web at your disposal at that point. Computers were super expensive and not many people had them. So how did you find the guys in your band? Were they other students with you? Were they guys you met on the strip? How did the band evolve?
So, what I did was, after I quit music, because again, I don't like admitting this part of the story, but it is true. And it was taken out of the movie, but whatever, I'll talk about it now. Like, in all honesty, like when Korn beat me with their first record, and then I heard that record, I was just like dejected. I was like, holy crap. Like these guys are just like gods, I really felt like there's no place for me. Like this dude took what I was trying to do. Now there was no stealing. I doubt we didn't even know each other back then,
right.
I just felt like, they did it. Like they did it, and I give them all the props and all the credit. I mean, that they were like the kings, but I was just like over it. So that's why, I shake my head, whatever. So I had an opportunity, when I was coming back up, I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do with my life now? I got the short hair and whatever, and this and that, and again, part of the story that a lot of people don't know is my father was in the adult industry as a distributor. Wasn't a director, wasn't even a producer. He was a distributor. And I went to him and I just said, look, I'm out of music school. This happened, I tried to explain to him the whole thing, this other band, whatever. He didn't fucking get it. And I was like, look, I don't want to go into business and do what you do. I'm a creative type, whatever. But, can you hook me up with some people to, I can weasel my way in through nepotism. I'm not even going to, try to sugarcoat it. It's just what it was, And he made some calls and got me in to meet some people to get into the industry that way. But that's another really big misconception of people that really do deep dives on me. They think my dad was like a director or even a producer, but he wasn't. He was a distributor, But he absolutely opened the door to introduce me to people to learn how to start making films. So I did that, and I was in porn for about a year, learning, starting to direct, starting to make my connections before it finally just dawned on me after the first year. I was like, this is cool, but, at heart, I'm a musician, and I want to get back into music. And when I made that decision, it was like, okay, well, how do I do this? And fortunately or unfortunately, I was really still messed up from that initial situation, because now I'm seeing Weezer sell millions. Korn is just blowing up. I think I heard through the grapevine that Incubus got signed or whatever. I actually literally think I ran into them,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they had the same manager as Korn. I think it was Peter Katzis. I'm not sure, so don't quote me on that. But like, it was like, okay, well, I don't want to go back out on the local scene and just kind of get overlooked again, because I already tried that, not in my head thinking,
Mm-hmm.
These guys made it because they had better music. They had better songs. Maybe they're a better singer. Maybe they're a better performer, in my mind, it was just like, well, I just don't want to get overlooked again, and it was at that point where there was a absolute, like idea in my head where it was like, okay, well, first of all, this new metal thing's blowing up. Okay, I'm just gonna. I stopped it, but I guess I have to adopt it because everybody else on the local scene is doing it. But I'm gonna do it a little bit differently, and also I'm gonna utilize some of these things that I have in the adult industry to bring into the music. And the reason why that is because back in '93, I learned about G.G. Allen. I was really into shock rock. Prior to that, I was really into shock rock. But I never really thought about bringing it into my own show up until that moment. It was like, okay, well, what can I do to not be overlooked and to shock people and to be noticed so I won't be overlooked again like all these other guys now that are selling millions of records. And I was like, okay, screw the clubs. I'm throwing a big-ass party up in the hills, $26 million mansion, live orgy, 1,000 people, chicks just running all around. And I was already writing music up until this point. But what I did was I just went and hired some people. I hired some people from MI. I hired some other guys that I knew. And interestingly enough, dude, on a side note, and again, I don't mean to be getting really into the weeds, but it is kind of
No, I appreciate it.
Some of the guys that I hired were a band that I don't remember the name, but it was a band that Koichi from Static X was in before Static X. It was his band.
Okay.
So I hired some of his band, and that's how I initially met Koichi. To be my band for the very first Society One show. And that's how it all started. We went up to this party and played the show and had the girls on stage and had the orgy. And it was legit shock rock because cops busted the show in the middle of it, man. They shut down. So many people tried to get to the show. They shut down the freeway, the 405. They had police helicopters. They stormed the stage. I mean, it was a big freaking deal. And this is the first show that Society One is doing. So you got to realize, like, think about it. The very first show Society One does in '96, we're getting shut down by the cops. We're getting raided. They're trying to arrest me. You know what I mean? Like like this is the first show.
Right.
It took G.G. Allen some time before he's shitting on the stage and getting arrested and stuff like that. Like, this is the first show I'm up in the hills hiding from the cops, as they rush the stage and like confiscating footage and all this stuff. You know what I mean? And there's 1,000 people there on top of it, so that's how it all began. And then obviously that was filmed. And from there, it was very easy to get band members because I basically put ads out. I think it was the Music Connection, whatever back then. I ended up taking the drummer from Koichi's band. That was a guy named Jamie Potter, who's on the first album. So I grabbed their drummer. I found 2 other guys through the Music Connection. And then Koichi left that band when he found Static X. Because Static X was playing around as a 3-piece. And he went and tried out for them and got in that band. And that's how I ended up meeting Wayne and Tony and all those guys all the way the fuck back in 1996. Right. So it was, again, another interesting story how everything is so, like intertwined. But that's how it all began. So I got the initial guys in the band, by sharing that video. It ultimately was packaged and put out in a porno. It was called The House of Flesh. And that was really the band's first release, was a freaking porno. No demo, no album, a fucking porno. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it was wild, man. So the band from the very get-go was already just off on a different level. I mean, just a totally different level. I always get shit for everything that I do, but think about this. Name one other band in the history of rock music where their first show has a public live orgy, 1,000 people, and gets busted by police helicopters and 30 police rushing the stage trying to arrest us.
Right. And I think that's what like sets the tone, right? Because obviously, like I said before, I saw you guys in 2000 or 2001, and it was awesome, right? And it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. And it still was one of my favorite shows to this day. And like I said, you were with Pissing Razors, which was a cool band from Texas. They were really awesome. So from that party, obviously you're gaining momentum now, right? Because I'm sure word spread, right, that you did this, right? How did that evolve into like what became Society One? How?
After that show, man, it was just like, it didn't take long. Like maybe by the next show, honestly, because I actually have very early shows of Society One. You know, I saw them in the archive when I was making the movie. It was like the next show, I think, was the Troubadour, and it was like porn stars all in the front row, tits out already. You know, they gave us the backstage, up porn stars all up there. You know, my hair still goofy and short, like up to here, but chicks just like all over the place. Tony from Static X, I have video of him in the background. You know, like people are already hearing about it showing up. We're already like going into the bathroom with chicks, shooting pornos,
Right.
Going backstage, shooting pornos before we even get on the stage. You know what I mean? So immediately it was just like we were off. And after those first couple of shows, it just became insane. Because not only did we do that at the shows, after the shows, we'd go back to my house, which I had a freaking little mansion over in Encino, because I was already very successful within a year of shooting, you know, the adult movies.
Sure.
So we would do these massive parties after the shows. And I'm not talking about like little typical parties. We're having public orgies at these parties. There's whole rooms with mirrors just lined up on the edges with blow, all of it. The backyard just filled with kegs, you know, hookah lounge in one of the rooms, you know, vag eating contests. Like there was it was just complete and utter insanity. And the reason why I bring that up is not really necessarily to brag or try to have a competition with Diddy's freak offs, but you know, that was Diddy, who was worth millions of records, maybe doing at the time. This was just a brand new band within 3 gigs, and people are like seeing this backstage, seeing it on the stage, seeing it after the stage. Every show that I did, I'm bringing limos to the show. We haven't even sold 1 record yet. We haven't even come out with a demo. You know, so it was immediately just blowing up like crazy. And ultimately Spin Magazine, like in 98, a couple of years later, did a expose on the parties. And after that, it got even freaking crazier. So everybody started hearing about this thing, and everybody started like going to the shows. Everybody, you know, Dino and Lynn Strait from Snot and Jonathan Davis. And I mean, dude, I could sit here for the next 3 hours and just talk about those early days. Right. I don't know how much you want to know about it, but I mean, it was absolutely insane. So, you know, the shows were huge. The parties were huge. And then the parties were so big that my band at the time, they were crazier than anything you could ever imagine. Motley Crue. After that party went until about 3 a.m, there would be an after party after the after party that would be at the drummer's house. And then all the really exclusive people then would go over to that house, and that party would go from Saturday or Friday night all the way until Sunday morning. And then that one is when all the really freaky freak-offs would like happen. And those are the parties that I didn't go to. Right. Because then they would start doing like ecstasy and shit. And like the shit that would happen over there would make Diddy's parties look fucking tame. And I never knew about it until years later. I'm over there and there's all these picture books like all over the places, you know. And I started opening these books and they took pictures of everything. And it was like, what the fuck is this? Because, you know, with me, you know, I stopped doing drugs very early on and stopped drinking very early on. So my parties after the shows would just be mainly, for me, just sex.
Mhm.
And then after all the public orgies and stuff would be done, I would just take chicks into my room, you know, because I had the master bedroom with the jacuzzi and the freaking steam room and the whole bit, you know, and the whole thing. So when that night was done, I would just have my 1 or 2 chicks that I would just wait, but then they would go off and do the after party, and I knew not even to talk to them until Monday morning, you know. So yeah, that the after parties was even another level that like became part of the lore of the band, you know, part of the myth. And on a quick side note, after my movie, I wanted to shoot another movie about the first 5 years of the band, just called Porn to Rock, All Sex, No Violence. And it was just going to be about the first 5 years of the band. And I contacted those original guys. They're all still alive. And I originally got them to approve it, but then 2 of them backed out when it became time to shoot, because it's just so much that I think they got scared with Diddy, you know, being in the, you know, P. Diddy being in the thing or whatever. But yeah, it was a really wild time, man. But yeah, dude, like everybody, dude, like you'll never believe me, but like even people like the bass player for No Doubt would come to my sets. You know what I mean? Like it was insane 100% of the time. And I'm not even getting in and name dropping the parties.
I
don't care. Like, dude, we throw parties for the Backstage Slut series, and everybody and their brother was there. Like the first Backstage Sluts party we had, Lemmy was there. That's when Lemmy and I started having problems, was at that party. Billy Corgan showed up at that party. You know, Ivan DePrume came to that party. I mean, all the guys from Korn came to that party. That was the first time I met Fred Durst. Was at the Backstage Sluts, the release party in like '97. You know what I mean? Like, dude, it was freaking crazy. And part of the problem, you know, why it was so nuts, that I had a publicist at the time, and I'm just trying to give you a full picture.
No, absolutely, I appreciate it.
Do all of that, and then add on top of it, I had a publicist who unfortunately recently just passed away, Jeff Hickey, rest in peace. He would bring me everywhere on the nights that we weren't playing or had to shoot. So I would literally be like at Pantera, like, and he would just walk me backstage and then knock on Phil's door. And I'm standing there as a 21-year-old kid looking at Phil Anselmo, like this larger than life dude, just sitting there talking to him for 20 minutes before the show. Then I'd go to the VIP and there's Marilyn Manson. You know, I'd meet Marilyn Manson and then met Billy Corgan, and then we'd all go to the Rainbow afterwards. And I'm 21, 22. These guys are the, you know, above me, you know, as far as age, and they're all massive stars already. And I'm hanging out at the Rainbow with Billy Corgan, and then Vinnie Paul shows up, and Marilyn Manson's there, you know, and all this is going on while all that other shit's going on. And on top of it, you know, we're going to all the film sets. I had James Gandolfini from The Sopranos come to one of my shoots. He spent the whole day with me because he was researching a role for 8mm. And then in turn, he invited me to his shoot. So I got to go and meet Joel Schumacher and Nicolas Cage, and he's inviting me into the trailer, you know, and I'm on that set. And then we had to leave because from there we had to go to the new magazine party that was going on or whatever. Then everybody would be there from, you know, Scott Ian from Anthrax or whoever. And then it was like, oh, we got to go catch King Diamond's show because I love King Diamond. And then we'd run over there, and I get to go backstage, and I go to meet King Diamond, and they ended up thanking me on a record, you know, like, and going backstage and hanging out with freaking King Diamond. You know, I was listening to him when I was like 12 in 87 or whatever, 86, you know. So, you know, as you can tell, when I talk about it, I'm very animated because I was still a kid then, and it was before a lot of the luster wore off, and it was before a lot of the really bad shit started happening. I was still young enough and innocent enough and still had a positive enough attitude about Hollywood that it was just wild. So I trade none of it for anything.
Sure.
Those initial 5 years were absolutely wild, man. And I mean, and I didn't even get into, like in the movie, I threw Jonathan Davis's bachelor party.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, like, dude, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Like I could talk about it forever and name drop everybody that was involved, and people wouldn't even believe it. Thank God I have a lot of it on video or pictures to prove it. Because most people just are like, no, that's not real. If it was real, you'd be bigger. You'd be in a bigger band or some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I get it. I kind of wanted to ask this question. I know times are different now, right? Obviously in the current climate we're in versus, you know, that era of it. But, you know, you didn't do anything that anybody wouldn't do using their star power per se to get where they were at. And I find it weird now that, like, you get guys like Keanu Reeves, who's an actor and decides he wants to start a band, and now they push his music, but he used his star power to get the band off because if Keanu Reeves wasn't Keanu Reeves the actor, no one would care about his band. It's not that good.
Yeah.
But like, it just seems to me like with the when after watching the movie and kind of getting when you start from 23 and then you go back to the beginning and then you go through the eras and you end up and you get to the last scenes of the movie and you're kind of like saying I don't know like what happened, almost like what where did things go wrong type of thing. But like, it seems now that that would be way more accepted than it was back then. Am I wrong? Like, I just kind of get the thing, because obviously, like I said, I love the music. I love your band. I still do. But I just feel like, when you say it now versus what musicians and actors kind of do that crossover where they use their star power to elevate their band. Now it's accepted, right? People think it's cool. And I don't want to say, anything because I haven't really listened to it. But the actress that was in The Conjuring, I don't know. She started a metal band, right?
Yeah.
She's the singer in a band.
Yeah.
But if she didn't have her star power as an actress, no one would know who she was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's just kind of unique now where it's more accepted versus when you tell your story, it was kind of overlooked. Do you feel that way?
I don't really think about it in those terms because that's not really why the industry backlash happened.
Okay.
Like it wasn't because of the fact that I used fame from one thing to get into another, maybe partially, but there was so much more that happened that ultimately was rebelled against by the industry and is still rebelled against to this day. So for me, it wasn't about, nobody, liked it because I used this fame to get into it. I think it was not fame. It was more about what I was actually using, which was porn,
right.
And I think a lot of people lost. Well, there was a lot of things that happened. I mean, I could list them. I mean, and just to go through them. I mean, so some people started regretting it that they were involved. Mark McGrath, very famous,
right.
Howard Stern piece that happened, tried to, completely got me kicked off of VH1 and MTV networks. That was because of him. Because his management told him you can't be involved with Matt because of the fact that he was in Backstage Sluts. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So to get kicked off, I was never on the MTV networks ever again. So that's one thing that happened. But there was other people like that. Another one was, people becoming bigger stars. Fred Durst and I were super cool until he became a bigger star and then didn't want to hear about me anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And there's stories I could tell about that. So that was another thing that happened. Another thing is that, Kid Rock came on the scene. And next thing you know, he's dating porn stars and having porn stars dance at the Grammys and dance on his stage and, openly talking about how, he likes porn and stuff. But he's selling millions of records. And, he's got a massive label behind him. And I actually was given a heads up about him. And it's nothing against him. We were cool back in those days. I have nothing against Kid Rock. He did what he did, and he's a multimillionaire and had a great career and a great life. And, he may have not even been, well, actually, no, we knew each other. So I can't say that he was unaware of me. But maybe it was his label that did it. Maybe it was him. But whatever the reason, So, that was another reason what happened as far as the initial pushback. So, there was a lot of reasons as to why that initial pushback happened. Those were just, some of them. And when I was going through it and living through it, I saw that and I understood it and I got it. And that's why I dropped it partially. I was sick of it. I was over it. I knew that it had run its course. When you're being talked about on Howard Stern, which kids today don't understand,
right?
He's basically the Joe Rogan of that time.
Yeah.
But when you're getting talked about, named on Howard Stern, and Mark McGrath is like, no, and you're getting just destroyed, it's done. It's over,
right.
Like, okay, so that's why I left all that and was like, all right, I got to do something else. I got to reinvent myself. I got to do something new and I got to do it all over again because I gave it my best shot. And unfortunately, a whirlwind of circumstances occurred and it's just not going to happen. Mark McGrath happened, Kid Rock happened, all these other people that were like, Fred Durst, a lot of other people like him happened, and it's just over. So it's time to try again and reinvent myself. And I believe that, like, if I was truly creative that I didn't have to be a one-trick pony. You know, I could do something else.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's ultimately, you know, what I ended up doing. I mean, you know, in retrospect, I wish I could still be friends and still be included with a lot of those guys, because some of them, you know, were really cool in the beginning, you know, all the Papa Roach guys and even the, you know, the Slipknot guys and Static X and System of a Down and all the people, Casey Chaos, and I Deftone,
Right.
everybody, you know, like,
Yeah.
and then ultimately I was just the odd man out, you know, like, and unfortunately some of the good friends that I had, you know, like Lynn Straight passed. So he, you know, really, you know, couldn't really be my friend anymore. And Wayne and I, you know, definitely had many years where we weren't talking or friends,
Mm-hmm.
which is hilarious because when he came back around years later, it was a, you know, wild thing how that all happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it kind of a bummer, you know, like getting on that wrong foot with Lemmy, you know, that was a bummer.
Yeah.
Because, you know, these guys are legends, you know, I wish it didn't really happen that way, but, you know, when it did, it did. And I was like, all right, it's just time to do something else. But it had already started after the porn era. It was like, screw that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, ultimately, I might be a little naive here, but who was making that decision? Was it the record executives? Were it the publicist? Was it like who kind of like, do you feel made that happen or not happen for you? Like, because it seems like with the talent of your band and the stage show and the performance, girls aside, like the talent was there, at least in my opinion. Like who kind of like was against you, if you could touch on it
during the porn years?
Well, no, like after that, like, because like after the era of like, you know, obviously you played all these shows and you did the tours and you did everything.
Yeah.
But who ultimately made the decision to like not re-sign you or like say, hey, maybe you should change what you're doing? Or like, was it you? Was it people in your ear? Was it kind of a little bit of both? Or like,
what no, man, it's a lot of stuff happened.
Okay.
I mean, the late Earache dropped us. And, you know, I heard rumors and rumblings as to why that was. I don't really discuss that much, only because Earache gave me all the rights to my music to use for my movies. So that was really nice of them. And they just recently gave me rights for another project that I need that's announcing in July.
Okay.
But at the same time, I mean, they did drop me, and it didn't make any sense because they dropped me literally a couple of weeks after I played Download. I'm making rock history and playing in front of 80,000 people suspended, you know. But there's reasons as to why I heard that. I don't know if they're true or not, but that was a big problem. So that was one.
Sure.
Another one was Ministries management. You know, they stole half my band. A lot of people don't realize it. I can talk about it now because Raven, my old bass player, has passed away. They grabbed him as a bass player. Then they grabbed my guitar player, St. Kieran, who was in the band for 14 years after that. I can talk about that now because he's no longer in that band anymore. And we had a massive falling out about that. They were actually going to grab my drummer too, but then the management stopped and they're like, well, we already got half of Society 1 in the band. So we had a lot of issues with each other. I actually got a call from their management that they literally said, and it's not their current management, it was their management at the time, which was Al Jurgensen's then wife, Angie, who's no longer his wife nor his manager, so I can talk about this. Okay. She literally called me and said, we are going to ruin your career. We are going to make it our life's mission to ruin whatever career you have left. So they were a part of it. There was an agent that spent 10 years doing everything that he could to destroy my career, who openly admitted it in email, who was about 5 years ago Me Too'd. You can Google him. Okay. And he was Me Too'd by 30, 40, 50 bands, and everything came out about him. So that was finally talked about and confirmed. It wasn't me just being delusional. Like, you can go Google his name and read all the bands that literally came out and said, oh, he said he was going to ruin my career. He did this to me. One guy ended up committing suicide because the guy destroyed his career so bad. Like, so there was that guy that was against the band. That's another very specific example that you can learn and see. So that was another part of it. So yeah, it was real pointed people that you can point to and say, oh, well, this person, that person, that person. That was a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, but it was also, the press, and all the people that were involved on that side, as well. And they had their reasons too. Their reasoning was, a lot of them like they just didn't have any respect for the whole thing. It was like, he's always been a gimmick. Suspension, porn, the Gigi Allen type gimmicks, whatever. The girls, whatever, so the press was a big part of it. I mean, there was just so many, and then obviously there was all the band people, dude, and sometimes it wasn't even the band people, it was the band people's wives. Corey Taylor's wife hates me. You know what I mean? Like, I probably shouldn't say that publicly because they'll just deny it, right. But he freaking hates me. And you don't think that she's in his ear, you know what I mean? Like, right. Dude, it's just crazy. Like, we got kicked off a Rammstein tour in 2005 before it even started, and when I was researching the movie, I actually got a hold of my old agent to supply me with the emails from their agent to confirm that really happened, because people look at us and go, oh yeah, Rammstein, they've got, they have whatever they do. Why are they going to kick you off tour? But it really happened. We had the tour and then they didn't. They kicked us off. Now, why did they? There's speculation as to why, but that really happened. That's a real thing that happened, but
now speaking of Rammstein though, right? You fast forward almost 20 years later, last year, Tell got in a bunch of trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because people were saying, right? So it kind of comes full circle, right? Because, I don't know, right? They're just speculation, but like he was charged, right? And it was all over the press about, the things he was doing at these parties and like, so but I get it. It's just unique that like you're open about talking about all this stuff. And it seems like, the girls and the rock star life are synonymous with each other. Yet you always seem to take the blunt of that when you look at all the 80s excess of guys that embraced it, like the era just kind of fell short. And that's what I have a hard time wrapping my head around, because, when you watch all those 80s videos, right? The Vince Neil behind the scenes stuff, right? When they knock on the mansion, he's walking down the stairs and he's got, the two strippers in the bed, right? And they're like, it's openly publicized that like, that's what they did. Like those guys lived the rock star life, and it was like, it's embraced. You did it. And it's kind of like, well, we don't want to, like, why would you do that? It's just weird I feel like it's like you kind of got the short end of that one.
Yeah, but I don't think a lot of the pushback is from the girls though.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was all the other things, Okay. It was like, I ultimately think, and again, part of it's me thinking about it, part of it's me hearing bits and pieces from other people. It was, you're not real. You don't deserve to be here. We have zero respect for you. You're all gimmick. Fuck off. Because that's what it's not. Oh, you had too many chicks. Yeah. If that was the case,
I get that.
Motley Crue wouldn't, nobody would talk to them anymore, and they're getting movies made about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not even about porno, because Tommy Lee just had a movie on a series on Hulu.
Right.
So I don't think it's the girls, man. I think it's more of, it's like, this guy didn't do it the right way. He's always been a gimmick. And, that's that.
I understand what you're saying, like, and I understand the gimmick thing, but when you take a step back and you listen to the music and you listen to the records you put out, they're awesome. Like, at least I think so, right? Like, I'm a huge fan of the band. It didn't seem like a gimmick to me, right? Because it sounds like, you were able to take the stage with a lot of those other bands and sound just as good as they did. And I don't understand where they would feel that way, because your efforts don't go unnoticed. Like your band is awesome. Well, and I don't understand like why they necessarily would have felt that way, because when I listen to your albums, I compare them to a lot of the other nu metal bands of the time, and they are up there with, at least in my opinion.
I thank you. And I think that there's moments and there's certain songs, but look, dude, the bottom line is this, man, you just have to base it off of sales.
Sure.
And the sales were just never there, and it's like now it's like, you know, our Spotify numbers are incredibly low, you know, even though we got millions of hits over on TikTok, you know what I mean? So people just, I think, looked at the gimmicks or what they perceived as gimmicks, and then looked at the sales at that time, and they're like, you know, this isn't real, you know. And dude, we've also had people like Monty Connor come to our shows back in '99 when we were on tour, and not like us even back then. Oh, these guys are a bunch of clowns. He actually called up my lawyer at the time and left a message, you know. That's what he said. These guys are a bunch of clowns, you know. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, I think music is a subjective thing.
Sure.
And you can argue whether or not there's any validity to it. But I think that if we had bigger label or more money put behind us, and we could have sold even as much as a band like Dope or Spineshank or somebody like that, I think people would look at us very differently now. But
sure.
Our sales just weren't there. You know what I mean? And I think that's ultimately what did us in, because when I was supposed to do something for Revolver, they wrote back the label and said, you know, we're not going to give Matt any more press because he doesn't deserve as much press as he gets versus all the bands that don't get as much but sell more records. So they kind of explained it right there.
Okay.
You know, they were like, look, he's huge. Television shows, internationally, festivals, all this attention, you know, like this guy, but he sells this much, but here's these bands selling this much and they have this much press. So screw that guy. Right. And I think that's ultimately what ended up happening as far as the press side of things.
Sure.
And the industry side of things. You know, now I think it's a bit different, but then I think that's what happened. If I had to guess, yeah, I have heard a little bit from people like, you know, Revolver, you know, but this was years ago. So to like to confirm this and be able to prove it, you know, sometimes it's really difficult. And that's like a real big issue with me when I get up and do these podcasts and interviews, because I know what the truth is and stuff like that. But if I can't show you emails or movies or video clips or whatever, you know, it gets very, very hard to argue and prove, because people go, well, I don't know who this guy is. He's just a liar. Anybody could say these things, you know? Sure. I mean, look, dude, if I were to tell you right now, or say, hey, I was once called and hired to sing backup or sing with Tommy Lee in a television show on HBO, Home Sweet Home, you'd be like, no, you didn't. You're a liar. Yeah. And people say that to me, but guess what? I have video proof and pictures of it. You know what I mean? So they go, oh my God, how did this happen? And I go, well, you wouldn't have believed that if I didn't show you. So that's one story I do tell, because I can literally show you the episode with me in it and the pictures of us on set. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's my whole life, dude.
Sure.
You know, that's everything. Like, I could talk your ear off for 10 hours about Rammstein kicking us off of tours and Tommy Lee and hanging out with the guy from Slipknot and doing this and doing that and meeting, you know, and hanging and talking to Billy Corgan and whatever. And I can only prove a fraction of it. And that's why I don't tell, you know, like a lot of the stories, you know, like that I tell, but there's enough stories that I can prove that people go, maybe this guy isn't lying.
Right.
You know, like, oh my God, like, you know, anybody could say they got hired to sing with Tommy Lee on this, and they're like, but like, oh my God, he really did.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it wasn't, I was hired to sing with the guy because he's not a singer, you know, but he wrote the song. So they're like, well, he needs some support. So, you know, call it Matt Zane, you know? They're like, Matt, are you available? I'm like, yeah, I'll be right down, you know? And nobody will believe I walked on the set. Tommy Lee sees me, walks right up to me. Do I know you? You know, like, I don't know. So we may have it at some festival or whatever, but nice to meet you again. Oh, let's grab a picture. Okay, let's go to set, you know, and you know, you can go and look at the episode. Oh shit, there's Matt, you know. Like, so, but that's my whole life.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way that it goes. Oh, you didn't know Jonathan Davis. Oh, well, here he is in an article saying that through his bachelor party. And I'm thanked and follow the leader, the biggest corn record ever. Jonathan Davis thanks me personally. Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's some validity to what this fucking guy says.
Sure. So, you know, I had like 1,000 questions to ask you, right? And this conversation's been awesome. But let's segue then into the movie, right? Like, what made you want to do that, right? You came up with this documentary almost style of a journal, basically, of your life, right? And you know, you started and you bounced back and you kind of tracked us through the band. What made you want to do that? What was the inspiration for doing that?
Every band reaches a point where it's time to make their documentary. That's number one. It doesn't matter who you are. If you've had any type of career, it's time. Like the Butthole Surfers just came out with one. You know what I mean? Not saying that they shouldn't. They should.
Right.
There's a ton of bands. The Descendants have, well, everybody, even not, you don't need to be Metallica or Korn to have a documentary. That's number one. But really what it came down to was the fact that the industry and the press is doing everything they can to erase my story. And I didn't want it to just go away and never be told and never be out there for people to consume. Because people these days look at my band and go, who are you? Like a lot of the kids in the last 15 years or 10 years or whatever. Oh, you're a nobody. Like people will hear me talk about my movie and go, why does this loser have a movie? Oh, who's this asshole? Like, like he's nobody. He's done nothing. Why the fuck would he have a movie? And that's why I had to make the movie, because you watch the first 5 minutes and you go, why the fuck don't I know about this?
Right.
You go, how is this guy playing in front of 80,000 people in a way that's never been done in rock history before? Why is Fred Durst and Papa Roach and Jay Gordon and Dave Navarro and Wayne Static talking about this guy? First 5 minutes. You know what I mean? In the movie, like, holy shit! Like, what the hell's going on here?
Right? No, absolutely.
And I wanted the story to be told because it's the most unique rock story, probably one of the most unique stories in rock history, and it needed to be told and it needed to be codified in a movie and put out there because I didn't want it to go away. And nobody, after watching it, can argue that it shouldn't have been made. And that's basically what I get after everybody watches it, because it's like, okay, Matt's not Led Zeppelin, or shit, Matt's not even Korn, not even close. But it's actually a more interesting story. There's never been a band that's ever come out of the actual porno world all the way then to making rock history with Suspensions, and then having all these things in between, like, inspiring Dave Navarro, that Jane's Addiction ultimately had Suspension artists, to making world records with Suspension beating Chris Angel, to, having all these big bands in this series that he created, Backstage Sluts, and then doing all of these things that have never happened before in rock history. And, again, the Butthole Surfers, really cool fucking band, dude. Yeah, they've sold more records than me. Good for them. But if you watch the trailer for their documentary, there's literally a part in the trailer where people are like, then they brought this big stuffed animal on stage and they ripped the head off and they're going like this with the fluff. They put that in the fucking trailer like it's like a fucking stuffed animal, right?
Right.
You're going to tell me that they're going to do a documentary about that, but yet I'm the first guy ever to have a 14-person girl orgy on stage, fucking going nuts, buck naked in front of 10,000 people. I'm the first guy ever to stick hooks through my back and do a music video and then bringing it in front of 80,000 people and suspend for a whole set. Never in fucking rock history before. Influencing great bands like Jane's Addiction and Dave Navarro. I'm the first dude ever to freaking get his salad tossed on stage by his band members. Even fucking G.G. Allen wouldn't do that shit.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm the first guy ever to come out with a dick microphone, and have an actual, I came out the first year, Jonathan Davis had an alien stand and I had a dick mic, but we were the first two guys ever to have custom mic stands like that. But I was the first ever to have a dick microphone stand. Like, it's like these things have never happened before.
Sure.
And then lesser things. I was singing Upside Down back in 2002. There was another guy that did do it, and I forget their name right now, and I shouldn't, because all respect goes to him. We were actually doing it at the same time. So he was doing it higher and bigger because he was a bigger band. So they would look dangerous, but all respect to him for doing as well. I just wish I could remember his name. But like all this shit happened and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's giving credit. People talk about G.G. Allen taking shits on stage. And it's like, yeah, I love G.G. Allen. That was the first guy ever to do it. But then me, I'm bending over and getting my salad tossed on stage. Yeah. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you're going to talk about a guy shitting on stage, why aren't you going to talk about a guy getting his salad tossed on stage? If you're going to talk about Manson cutting himself on stage, even though before him, G.G. Allen did it, Iggy Pop did it, Sid Vicious did it, Darby Crash did it, but I'm sticking freaking hooks through my back and hanging. Why isn't anybody talking about that?
Right.
So
No, exactly.
It just got to the point where it was like, this needs to be told. The record needs to be set straight for every person that talks shit about me. And there's people every day that's like, who the fuck are you? You're a fucking loser. Have fun playing in front of 2 people. Oh, you're a fucking Marilyn Manson ripoff. Not realizing I'm freaking 50 years old. He's only 5 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, all right, dude, you know what? everyonediesthemovie.com. Watch and learn and come back to me.
Right.
Then come back and say that I'm a piece of shit. You know what I'm saying? And the messed up part about it is that it almost seems like we're not done. I almost want to shoot a sequel because like we just did a comeback show at the Whiskey A Go-Go, and I was the first guy ever on stage yet again to invite people from the crowd to come up and literally cut me while I'm singing.
Yeah.
That's never happened at a rock show in the history of rock and roll. It didn't even make my first movie. So like the band's not even done shocking people. Yeah. People go, oh my God, you had a Marilyn Manson moment. Well, first of all those people, Darby Crash, Sid Vicious, Gigi Allen, they all cut themselves before. I'm the first guy ever to do that.
Right.
So it's just a matter of constantly fighting the powers that be, fighting the press, fighting the industry, saying, I get it. You're trying to erase me. I don't fit into the whole thing. I'm not part of you. I understand it, but it's not right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and here's my proof. Here you go.
Yeah, and that's awesome, right? Because like I said, I've been a huge fan for a while, and obviously I love the music. You said earlier it's biased, right? But like I just happen to to love what you guys were doing. Like I said, I brought it out the other night. Like I had the DVD, right? Like I am a fan of the band, and I have been since I saw you guys, back in the day. The suspension stuff, I know you mentioned it earlier. If the fans that are watching of mine don't know, explain what the suspension is, and then we'll kind of get into how that started.
Yeah, so basically body suspension, I mean, it's a lot more known now than it was. You got to remember, when I started doing this, it was 2002, 2003, Basically, it's just some hooks, steel hooks. I think they're shark hooks or meat hooks. And they take them, and then they put hollow hooks on the end of them, and then they pierce it all the way through your skin, and then they pull you up with strings and the hooks off the ground, and it could be through your back or your chest or your knees or whatever. And I didn't invent suspension. It was done in Native American cultures prior to me, but it was done even before me, not by a lot of people, but there was definitely people that did it. That's where I learned it from them, like these artists that did that. A specific guy I learned suspension from was a guy named Joey Strange. And I was the first guy then to synthesize performing with body suspension and bringing it into music. And that's basically the gist of it.
Sure. So now going into, obviously you get tattooed, you get pierced, you get that's a much different experience, right? Obviously the pain has to be somewhat there, and then the to tolerate it, right? How many pounds can each one of those hooks take? Like can because you got to imagine, right? Like you're hanging there from your shoulders, basically, right? And there has to be, obviously the clip with you and Mistress Julia, right? When you picked her up, and Tearaway, you picked her up, right? So combined weight, can those meat hooks support a lot more than that?
I don't know.
As far as the body goes or the structure of it?
It changes over the years, man. If you look at my early suspensions, I did suspension so early that in the beginning they were putting 6 hooks in my back.
Okay.
Because they thought that's what was needed for somebody that was but then they learned more. And then by the time I ended suspensions, they were only doing 4.
Right.
So maybe they're only doing 2 now. I don't know. I haven't done suspension since 2008.
Okay.
So I don't.
Because the 4 broke the record, right? You had 4 when you.
Well, no, I mean, it didn't break the record in terms of the least amount of hooks. I broke the record when I hung. Chris Angel hung with 8 hooks like this for 5 hours and 42 minutes. Right. I only did 4 hooks and made the new world record and hung for 6 hours.
Okay. Right.
So yeah, I don't really know the answer to that because I never really got into I had the group core when they were still around, handle all that for me.
Sure. Because
they were the professionals. They were a body modification troupe and performance that really understood far more than I did as far as all that was concerned. So I trusted them. Steve Joyner, and Damon Pierce, my 2 main guys. Awesome. Who are in the movie. I named him in the movie.
Yeah, and I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, and but you watching that, right? The shape you have to be in to do that, though, is pretty relevant, right? Like you have to have a lot of core strength to do that. You obviously are like you're in good physical shape, right? Like we talked about the workouts and stuff like that, and the things you do. I saw the video that you posted, but like you have to be in relatively good shape to be able to withstand that amount for the amount of time you did it, right? Am I wrong with that? Like, because
Yeah.
you pretty much have to have a lot of core strength to do that.
Well,
you would think
when you have to hang for like a long time, or do like a violent type of suspension or lift, then yeah. But if otherwise, you don't need to really be in shape.
Okay.
Yeah, but like when you do, like when I did my world record breaking 6-hour suspension, yes, absolutely. Because like, for example, nobody's ever really been able to break that because of the blood pooling in the legs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do a lotus position while I suspend, which I talked about in the movie. You know, when I realized that I could do that, that saved me in my 6-hour suspension, because I was like, oh my God, my feet are going to explode. But then I was able to get them above my waist through being in a lotus position and then having the strength to be able to pull my legs up.
Right.
So in that sense, that specific suspension took a tremendous amount of physical ability and strength and flexibility. But other than that, you know, a lot of it just took will.
Okay.
You know, you need some strength to be able to lift a girl up, but not an excessive amount.
Yeah, I was just curious because I obviously, like, you know, I saw the workout that you were doing with the stretches, and you know, you lifted your stuff up, and you said, you know, being at your age, staying in shape is super important for what you do on stage, right? And a lot of people don't get that because you look at a lot of the rock stars that haven't aged as well, and you look at somebody like you, like you're in phenomenal shape, right? Like you take care of your body and like you do all that stuff. Where, you know, not to poke fun at, like, you know, Vince Neil or Axel, right? But like, you know, at their age, they're obviously a little bit older than you, but like, you know, the guys like Phil Anselmo at 55, he looks pretty good, but there's a lot of rock stars at that age that don't, they look awful, right? And they lose their voice and they lose. So you've done very well, right? In that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really in great shape. Well, I was great shape all the way up, pretty good shape up until the whiskey show 2 weeks ago. I've definitely taken 2 weeks off since then because I've been so freaking busy with stuff. But normally, yeah, I'm really on top of it. Obviously, I gotta jump back into it, you know, soon. I gotta cruise back to New York for a while, but probably after that. But for the most part, you know, I'm into it. But yeah, it's like it's like this, dude. Like the two greatest, most physical performers of all time, James Brown and David Lee Roth, right? Mm-hmm. Amazing at their peaks. By the time those guys hit 50 years old, it was half as good.
Yeah.
James's voice was still phenomenal into his 50s. He lost it later. Dave was already struggling by then. But their physical performances by 50 were already not done, but half as good.
Right.
And I love those guys. And I saw that. And I was like, I don't want that to happen to me.
Sure.
I want to be able to go out and give people as close as possible the performance that they saw 25 years ago as on that comeback tour in 2023, as well as the show that I just did 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And in order to do so, you know, you've got to maintain, it's not about maintaining even your muscles. It's about mobility.
Yeah.
Flexibility. So, you know, my workouts and everything that I do is geared towards that. So I'm not big. I'm not even like have a lot of muscles, nearly as much muscles as I used to, because I didn't need to do as much mobility back then. I could just work on the muscles. So I have a lot less muscle now, but I don't work on that. I work on being able to move in a way that I can still give people the show that they're expecting to see, you know. And, you know, David Lee Roth and James Brown didn't do that. And it's not easy to do that. Now, it may have been even more difficult for them because maybe arguably they did more physical stuff. Maybe James Brown, you know, maybe not so much Dave, but, you know, what I do on stage is pretty, like, it's not typical. Like it's pretty up there in terms of physicality. Yeah. So yeah, you know, it's a conscious decision and it's tough. And I don't know how much longer at 50 I'm going to be able to keep up that same performance, but I already won in a sense because this last show was really the test. You know, I did the upside down thing off the whiskey balcony, and you know, I did all the moves, you know, and all the things. So it was, you know, it was good. It was good. Right. So I'm still hanging in there, barely, but still doing it.
I got you. So let me ask this: we've talked a lot about obviously the career and everything. In retrospect, would you have done anything different? Like if you could go back to when you were 17, can you say if I would have done this instead of this, or if I should have done this instead of that? Or do you look back and be like, I'm totally content with the way it happened and I wouldn't change anything?
Oh no, I have tons of regrets, and
Okay.
I would change tons of things because, I mean, look, when you look at it in terms of like my movie, right? You can watch it and go, "Wow, that guy had an amazing life." Like it's inarguable. Like it's like that's amazing. Like I wish I could have lived that life. A lot of people will absolutely say that because how are you going to argue it? Like thousands of beautiful women touring all over the world, tons of money, like the whole bit. Like it's hard to argue with that, but where I ended up, dude, is not a great place. Like I have no respect. Like, look at the movie, look at the comeback tour in 2023, look at the way they treated the band. I have no friends. I have no one helping me out. I have no industry contacts. Like, I was able to make the film because it was on the film side. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm able to do this next big thing that I'm doing in two months because it's not music, it's not film, it's another aspect of entertainment.
Sure. Which
people can figure it out. Some people have already guessed it, but it's outside of the industry. Like, I haven't really ended up in a good spot. Like, millions of views on TikTok, #1 movie, beat out Metallica's Metal Massacre on Prime, blah, blah, blah. I can name all these things, but my phone isn't ringing for one show. No PR companies will pick us up, except the guy that we finally have right now, Devastation PR. 14 companies wouldn't talk to us. Distributors wouldn't take us. Agents aren't calling us, won't have us. Labels won't talk to us. Bands won't take us out. We offer the buy-ons to go tour with them. They won't take us out. It's not a good place to be. I didn't end up in a good spot, and it's not easy. And it does matter because it has to do with financially being able to live and put the money into your art and what you want to do down the road. So there's a lot of things that I would have done different. But I don't think about it because you can't,
Right. Sure.
Yeah, obviously I would have tried not to get in a battle with ministry. I would have tried not to piss off that agent. I would have tried to talk to my label more on earache and being like, dude, we're the only band that ever did download and, that ever played the main stage in your entire label. We're your most toured band on your entire label. We did 230 dates this last year. Like, what's going on?
Sure.
There's so many things that I would have done. I would have tried to remain friends with Lemmy. I would have tried not to piss off Corey Teller's wife. There's tons of things.
Okay.
But what are you going to do? And it's a tough spot to be in now because I have the memories and I have the experience, but I don't have. I am so far on the outside of the music industry that it's just debilitating. Like, trying to get anything done. The only reason why we got to play the Whiskey was because I had a really good friend named Scum Love who it was his night. His band was playing and I was like, hey dude, I saw you're playing the Whiskey. Can you throw me on the show? And he's like the main guy over at Schecter. Sure. And he's he's an A&R guy over at Schecter, not the main guy, like not the owner, but he's like an A&R guy. He's a high up guy. And we've just been friends for 30 years, so he just did me a favor as a friend, but yeah, it's rough, man. It's a really, really tough, situation to be in. And I get up every day and it really doesn't make a lot of sense to most people. They just don't get it. They're like, right. Why don't you tour with this person? Why don't you do this? Why? Because they don't get it. They don't get to see behind the curtain and see that basically like everybody freaking hates me and nobody respects me. And nobody likes me. And, it's just the way that it is, it's right. Just, it's so bad that I showed a little bit of it in the movie, by what was done to us, but it's like, it's even worse than you think. Just put it another way, man.
Sure.
We have a #1 movie on Thunderflix for 2 months. The second month we went #1, we beat a movie called Metal Massacre that was literally about the first album that Metallica was on, that has Lars and Hetfield in the movie with new interviews. We beat that movie after their premiere.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. #1, we're on Prime Video. Prime, right? And yet the phone doesn't ring at all. So you tell me why.
Yeah.
We just posted a clip from the Whiskey Show up on TikTok 5 days ago. It's been viewed 100,000 times. But you're going to tell me we're not worth an opening slot on some tour for Power Man 5000?
Mm-hmm.
Or whoever.
Right.
Wednesday 13,
Right.
And it's just like,
yeah.
Think about why that is, man.
Right. So I get it. But obviously, so after talking to you for this amount of time, right, you can tell the passion is still there. The perseverance is still there. The hard work is still there. The grind is still there. So where does Society One go from here now? Obviously, you have the project coming out in July, but as the band, like, you haven't given up. You haven't thrown in the towel. You're still fighting, which is awesome to see. Where would you like the band to be? Obviously, after talking to you, you mentioned world tours and all this stuff, but like immediately, like, where do you guys try to like see yourselves? Are you trying to get back? I don't want to say back into the business because you're already in it, but like, are you happy and content now, or do you still find those challenges that you want to eventually hit?
Oh, it's absolutely still a challenge, because I feel that the band should at least be able to go back to clubs or opening up a tour that are only even 500 seaters, and we're not there. So yeah, it's basically just still a fight, because like I said, the phone's not ringing. What we're going to be doing in the immediate future, we're going to do a punk album of covers. We may do a sequel to the movie, because like I said, like, there's still so much story to tell. Like right now we're telling the story of the movie going to #1, but not getting any shows, Right. There's another big thing that's being announced in July. That's amazing. So yeah, the band's not done, but it is done. It's a weird dichotomy to be in, because we are not in the industry. We're not. It's over. But we're not over because we have a #1 movie on Thunderflix this month. Right. So sure. It's just like, it's such a weird place to be in, Like, right. I don't know how else to explain it. Never in history, you know what I mean, that like something like this could happen. You would never go, oh yeah, you're gonna actually be a movie about Metallica's first compilation they were on, and you're gonna be #1, and you're also gonna be on one of the biggest platforms in all the world for movies, but you aren't gonna have one show booked or one press article pick up it and report the news, or anybody talking about it, or any A&R or anybody A&R people replying to your messages. It just it seems impossible, but it's happening. Right. So that to me right there could be like another thing. But sure. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, we're gonna do this punk covers album. Probably try to book some more shows. This next project thing is gonna come out, be announced in July. Okay. We're just probably gonna just keep going for a bit, and just see what happens. But it's tough, man. It's sure. Not easy, because you do feel the hate. You feel it every day. It's not like I'm just some guy and people go, oh, I never got my chance. Nobody ever gave me my big break because nobody knows who I am or whatever. A lot of people can say that, and it's true maybe, but I can't say that. Right. You know how many freaking people I know? Exactly. You know how many people I have on my phone right now that I can call? They all know me. Mm-hmm. They don't give a fuck. Right. Like that. It's tough, man. Like, sure. You would shit your pants if I opened this up and scroll. You'd be like, no, there's no way. There's no way. There's no, you know what I mean? Yeah. They just don't care. So like, it's a tough situation to be in. And I wish I could say that it wasn't. Sure. But it is. It really is, especially after everything that I've done.
I get it. What moving forward, what's the Hollywood scene like now? Obviously, you're still there. Do you go down to the Sunset Strip at all now? Do you go in and hang out?
Last time I went to the Sunset Strip, my old manager hit me up for my birthday. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. Not my 50th, maybe my 49th. And I went to the Rainbow.
Okay.
Hollywood, spot. And I'm sitting in there and I'm like, looking around, thinking about all the memories and shit, And I was like, man, I haven't been down here in a while. I'm gonna go, look around real quick. I wanted to see the Lemmy statue because I remember when Lemmy used to really be down there, Mm-hmm. Dude, I can tell you tons of Rainbow stories, craziness. Shit, I met freaking David Lee Roth there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm walking around, and hence I'm turning 49, so I'm no spring chicken, But I'm walking around and I'm looking at everybody, and it looks like it was let the old people out of the nursing home night. You know what I mean? Like there were people that were so goddamn old, they looked like my fucking grandparents, dressed up in rock clothes, like they were playing fucking dress up. And I'm like, ugh. What the fuck? Like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? And I left, and I don't think I've been back since, know? Man, it's dead compared to what it was. Dude, House of Blues is torn down. The Key Club, which was Gazzari's before, is gone. There's no local shows anymore and on the rocks anymore. Whiskey's 100% pay to play. Like I said, the Coconut Teaser is gone. The Dragonfly is gone. All the club that tried to make the comeback up on Hollywood Boulevard years ago, Loaded, it's gone. Okay. All the clubs in the Valley are gone. All the ones that Metallica and U2 used to play, which was over in Reseda. The Reseda Country Club that I used to play is gone. The local Mancini's is gone. The Cobalt Cafe is gone. FM Station is gone. Yeah, dude. Yeah,
that's crazy. Obviously, I haven't been to California in like 3 years now, and I love LA. Right? Every time I go, I always want to see the Sunset Strip. I always kind of want to go down and just kind of check it out. But it seems like it's a different vibe now.
Oh right? Yeah, dude. Tower Records is gone. The Viper Room's supposed to be going away.
Okay.
So yeah, man. I don't know. I'm not saying that you couldn't maybe not like it, but I was here when it was the shit. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's just a goddamn depressing graveyard to go to. Like I don't, for me, it's just like I go down and I don't, it's just no fun anymore. Yeah. I know I'm tripping over my words thinking about it because it's like I'm having a difficult time kind of explaining. I don't really see anything. It's just not what it was. Yeah. So it's like depressing when I go.
Sure.
And dude, I don't really think you have to say any. Here's the proof. Okay. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Just go to the Rainbow. You're looking at a statue of Lemmy. Lemmy used to be there. Mm-hmm. And he was there for 30 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's the reality of it. Like you're looking at the fake Lemmy statue, which is a great tribute.
Tribute, sure.
But it's like, he's just standing up in this thing. I thought they were going to make it of him sitting at the bar that he used to sit at or something, mm-hmm. Which would have been, I thought, they wanted to do a little more classy, but it's just like, dude, like the Rainbow used to be a place where all the Strip used to be a place where real rock stars and real celebrities would mingle with the people. It used to be place. Mm-hmm. You can go to the Rainbow and look up on the board with all the pictures, and dude, the Beatles used to go to the Rainbow. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And now you go there on a Friday night, it's empty almost.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just not that into it anymore. And quite honestly though, dude, like I'm so busy. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's hard to get time to freaking do anything because like the computer ruined life.
Yeah.
Like you just have to be so up on your social media.
Yeah.
That it's just horrible. Like, dude, I am so freaking busy on top of like my movies and what else. There's just not a lot of time to go out and do things. I wish I could just say more like, oh yeah, I'm still out there going out and hanging out and partying and that. But like, man, it's just, I am like, my main focus on my life right now is just trying to get the stories of my life out because everybody else is just trying to put them down. And dude, it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I may do a movie about Wayne Static and his wife because I knew them. And I was really close friends with them. I may do a movie about the follow-up movie to my movie. I may do a movie about, I did one about my old bass player called The Altered Noise, D.B. Karloff, The Altered Noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot still more for me to tell that I really want to get out there because it's just important to me because I'm being repressed by the industry. And I was there as much as so many other people and more than some. And it's just like I want it to be out there. So really that's like my focus now. And let's be honest, dude, like, yeah, I'm in good health, whatever, but I am 50. The average life expectancy of a man in America is 75.
Mm-hmm.
So I got, like, let's just say I've got 25 years to do everything that I want to do, and then even after that, what kind of energy or health are you going to be in? You know what I mean? So it's just like, I am just laser focused, man, on getting the stuff out there, and telling the story, because maybe my generation and the generation after are never going to give me the due. Maybe they're never going to acknowledge it, but maybe the future generations, when they get out of the idea of the politics of it and believe what they're told, are going to go, wow, like, look at this that happened.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's like, God, that's my focus now. It's not about the club scene anymore or whatever,
So after making this movie, do you think time will heal the wounds? Do you think some of these guys and girls will start coming back and saying, hey, those were fun times? And they were like, do you think that will happen? Do you hope that happens? Or like, do you want it to happen? Is that?
No, these days, I don't think it's going to happen, nor do I really care anymore at this point. It really doesn't matter to me. I don't have the same enamored look of everything anymore. Like, now it's just, I look at these people and I look at what they did to me, and I'm just kind of like more disgusted by it and just over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not concerned with it anymore. I don't really care. Like, now when I meet the majority of people, if I get a picture or whatever, it's honestly more just to promote the fact that, like, oh yeah, I used to know this guy and now go listen to my music. I don't give a fuck anymore.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter to me, because the problem and why I have such resentment towards it is because they did their thing, they had their success, and now they still have the rewards from that success. They have the money. They can still go play the shows. They're selling the merch. They have, you know what I mean? They have the life that their career has afforded them. And I don't have any of that.
Okay.
I bled for my art. I bled for what I did to make rock history, and I have nothing. Like, even making this movie, initially there was investors and producers, and they all backed out of it when it got tough.
Right.
And I had to come in myself and finish it all myself and go bankrupt doing it. Again, putting me in a position where, again, I'm the guy that ends up with nothing, and it's not an easy place to be. So I don't care.
Sure.
I don't care about any of them. If I see them and they say hello, I'd be like, oh yeah, whatever. How you doing? I don't give a shit, man. Like, it doesn't matter one iota of me anymore.
So out of all the stuff that you've done and you've accomplished and what you've seen and what you did, what do you want your legacy to be? If people look back and say Society One, Matt Zane, what do you want them to think about when they say your name?
I don't know if it's any one specific thing. Like, if I had to choose one thing now, it's the movie.
Okay.
Because it is a movie. It's a thing. Yeah, there's a lot of things in there, but it's the movie. Right now, if like, it used to be a different thing. It used to be the book I wrote on Satanism, Doctrines of the Infernal Process. That used to be my crowning achievement. Prior to that, it was my spoken word record, Words as Carriers. At one point, it was Exit Through Fear. Briefly, it was the work that I did with other bands, like when I worked and I did all those music videos and directed all those music videos for Static X, or Wayne Static, I should say. Or when I shot the Doors for their 50th anniversary and they used my photos, and then they tagged me and you could see that I, directly worked with the Doors, So it changed over the years. But right now in my life, it's the movie. Like, if anybody says to me, oh, who are you? Okay, one thing. EveryoneDiesTheMovie.com. Oh, I don't want to watch it on the queue. Okay, Prime. Everyone Dies. Rockstars Don't Count. The movie. I just want, like, right now, it's the movie.
Okay.
Like, that's the That's the main thing. And again, it could change in a couple of years because I could do a
Sure.
sequel that could be better. I don't know how, but it could be more
Right.
interesting or whatever. It could be
Sure.
another movie I shoot, about the time that I had with Wayne or Tara, and all the stuff that we did together and everything like that. It could be, I could get really nostalgic, and it could be the movie that's already out, that's won the award, D.V. Karloff, The Altered Noise, about, him, because he was my best friend for, 15, 16, 17 years. And now he's gone, and, so I don't know. I think it just changes through the course of time, You get a perspective on it, obviously,
Right.
when you reach Robert Plant, or Roger Waters' age. I'm sure it's very easy for them to say, well, physical graffiti or The Wall. Because it's very apparent,
Right.
But for me, it's tough, man,
Okay.
But right now, like I'm proud of that movie. And I don't know which cut I like better, the original theatrical release or the extended cut. I'm glad they both exist.
Right.
But it just really depends. The original cut, the theatrical release, the Prime one, Thunderflix one, there's a couple mistakes in it that drive me nuts. I don't think anybody else can see them. And that movie almost gave me a heart attack finishing it because it was so stressful.
Okay.
But still, in retrospect, now it's definitely that movie.
That's awesome. So moving forward, out of everything we talked about, the ups and the downs, are you content now? Are you like, when you wake up in the morning, are you like, okay, this is what I've done. This is what are you like happy? Like, are you or are you still kind of bitter?
I'm content. Like, if it all ended like today, yeah, I did what I did. Like, it's not arguable anymore. Like, I would, like, if I died, like, I'm flying to New York on Wednesday, and if the plane crashes because this other project that's already done, that's in the editing stage right now, or stage is coming out. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I have accomplished. I don't think anybody could really argue with it. Like, you can, but it's tough,
right? Sure.
But am I happy? No.
Okay.
No, I'm not happy because I struggle. I struggle with a lot of things. I struggle with how much hatred I get every day. I struggle financially, But one of the most upsetting things that I struggle with is that I have no care in the world if somebody finds me and goes, oh, I hate you. Oh, the stuff that you do is horrible. I'm like, oh, really? You saw the movie? Oh, it was horrible. Oh, you have Exit Through Fear? Oh, I hate Exit Through Fear. Oh, you read my book? Oh, I read it. It sucks. Like, that actually doesn't bother me. What drives me more insane now than anything is the fact that the majority of people don't know anything that I've done. That drives me nuts.
Sure.
When people see my download performance and say, oh, you ripped that off from Marilyn Manson. Really? You think Manson did this? No. And that drives me insane. Like, when people don't know what I've done but hate me online and, through the press or whatever, that makes me go nuts. And that's something that I'm trying to fight against, because I don't care if you don't feel there's any value to it. But when you just write me off as somebody that's never done anything, and I wish it didn't drive me as crazy as it does, but it absolutely does.
Sure.
Like, I will literally get messages from people going like, oh, you're like, they'll not even like posting, they'll write me DMs and go, oh, you're a loser. Get comfortable playing in front of 3 people or whatever. And I'll write them back and go, hey, dude, watch this movie and then come back to me and let's then say what you just said to me. Oh, I don't need to watch it. I know you're a fucking loser.
So does the negative feedback outweigh the positive then? Would you say?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
See, that sucks. Like, I hate that for you, right? Because like I said, I'm a fan, right? And I've been for a long time. And when you agreed to do the show, like I told everybody about it, right? I'm like, Matt Zane's going to be on my show, right? And I remember being a 21-year-old kid seeing you, right? So like, those are my memories of you rocking out and being awesome, and like the ambiance of the show. Like, I remember all the good stuff, right? And like I said, I've been a fan for a long time. So it kind of hurts me when I hear you say that people are like saying that about you, when my perspective of you is like, you're a rock star, right? Like, you live the life we all wish we could. And like, I kind of want to live it through you, right? Like, that's, for me, that's my experience with you,
but right? Look at the difference though. You just said it. You saw me when you were 21 and you saw me back 20 something years ago.
Sure.
So in your mind, you're like, I knew this guy did this stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of the people that do a lot of the hate
right.
now, they don't know who I am. So they just associate,
Yeah.
they have their heroes and they don't want the idea of their heroes to be upset. So people, again, for lack of a better term, like argument, Manson's a great example because of the hair. People want to believe that Manson is their god, and he is, and he's done some great stuff, and that's just it. So like when you see somebody in the front stage cutting me with a knife just 2 weeks ago, immediately you go, no, Manson did that. Manson, my hero did that. That's Manson. That's all Manson.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to acknowledge that, like, wow, this guy just did something that he never copied anybody. Manson copied all these people. They don't, but they don't want to see it. So forget about me. They don't even want to see the fact that Manson literally copied 6 dudes before him. Yeah. Because they just love Manson. Yeah. And you know what, dude? It even happens with G.G. Allen. Oh, screw Matt Zane, G.G. Allen. And I'm like, dude, I love G.G. Allen, but G.G. Allen never suspended. Yeah. Nobody ever ate G.G. Allen's band member. You know, like, it's like, dude, I love him. He's a hero of mine, but this never happened. Like, it's more, dude. It's different. So like, people are just so, they don't want their heroes. They don't want to let anything else in.
I get that. Right. You know, and I've like just said, like, I like Marilyn Manson, right? I've seen Manson a bunch of times. I've seen, you know, all the guys. Obviously, I never saw G.G. Allen and I you know, and Iggy Pop or any of that. But like, you know, out of all the bands, like I said, that I've ever seen live, and I say this with all due respect to you, like, it was one of the coolest shows I'd ever been to. Right. And I've been a fan ever since. And I watched you on a couple podcasts where like guys have like kind of asked you questions and the interviews were basically like kind of cookie cutter. Right. But like I felt that they didn't know you. Right. They didn't know you as an artist. They've never seen you live. They've never had any of the stuff. They've never listened to the music. You know, it seems like until recently where I've been, like I said, I followed you through your career, right? Like I, you know, when social media came on, I've always followed you, everything you've done, you know, and like, I've been a fan of you and Society One for a long time. So I thought like when I was going to have you on my show, I was like, well, I can one up the other podcasts that you've been on because I've had that experience with you and the band for that many years.
Yeah. You know, like, look, dude, people don't talk about it a lot because it's not out for public consumption. I mean, think about it this way, man. Like, those podcasters would talk more about that if, again, they were somebody like you. You saw an early show and you recognized the fact of how unique it was and the experience that you had in it. So you've carried all of that with you. All these other people, you know, they have no idea because maybe they didn't see the band. But if you go up to all the websites, how often do you hear about Ghost? How often do you hear about Sleep Token? How often do you hear about a Slipknot show? Oh, Slipknot destroyed this show. Sleep Token did this. This happened with Ghost, you know, like Baby Metal, whatever. You hear it over and over and over. It's implanting the idea, the concept, the context of how you perceive these bands in the show that they're putting on. Right. I don't have that because they refuse to comment on what I do. And it's not out in public consumption. There's no context for all these other podcasters to put it in. Right. So their idea is very tiny. It's very small. It's almost non-existent. This guy exists, but, you know, whether or not they admit it, they're like, he's a piece of shit. He's done nothing because I don't read about it. I don't know to feel this way because I'm not getting it affirmed and ingrained in my brain by the press every other day, you know? Look, if the press realistically covered my last show 2 weeks ago at the Whiskey, it would have been a whole different story. But do you know how many people in the press covered it? I think MK Ultra. Yeah. And maybe one other person, but I think Insane Blog Net. But that was it. But like, imagine if they were honest about it. Right. Wow, dude. Society One came back. Matt was 50 years old. This chick come up and cut him while he was singing. Here's the video. He just hung upside down from the thing at 50 years old. Look, we haven't seen this in X amount of years. Oh, look at the dick mic. All these people jumped up on stage and started blowing it right in the mid show. Oh, he just jumped down and assaulted this chick and she loved it. And it was awesome. And look at what just happened here. And, you know, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like there's all these things. to talk about. Oh, he came out, he closed with a Gigi Allen song in a jock strap with his ass hanging out.
Mhm.
You know, like imagine if they talked about it like what really happened and positively, and they put it out on all the websites. And if they did that for every couple of shows, like they do for Slipknot,
Sure.
you know, or Rob Zombie or whoever, then people would go, oh, well, here we are with Matt Zane, and he's got a new movie out. And wow, man, your shows, you had some people cut yourself. Well, I know you came out in a jock strap, and this happened, and that happened, and it would be in their mind. But the press has done their job to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that sucks for you, right? Because like obviously the shows are awesome. I've reposted a bunch of stuff, right? But I'm in a different, I think, perspective because, like I said, I'm a fan, right? Like I've been with you through the ride, right? Like I've had the DVDs, I have all the CDs, you know. I've had, you know. So for me, my perspective on it is a lot different because I wished you would have been those guys that you mentioned, right? That Society One should have been just as big as Disturbed or Rob Zombie or any of the other bands that you mentioned before. Like, and it almost hurts me and pains me that you didn't get to that point where you should have been.
Well, think about it. I think if there was, you know, a couple thousand more people like you, you know, everything would change because the show would have happened, the comeback show, it wouldn't have been reported on. And then everybody would have been like, why aren't you talking about this? This never happened in rock history before. And then eventually the fans would have pushed the press, you know, and then maybe the press would have pushed the labels or the agents. But but like the name of the game now, dude, is, and I hate to use this term because I know it's a website, but it is an information war.
Yeah.
But it's an information musical war.
Sure.
That's really what it comes down to, dude. The pie is only so big. And the power is resting upon the people that disseminates the content.
Right.
And they've decided that Slaughter Prevail is a yes, Ronnie Radke is a yes. He's allowed to be decisive and he's you know, anti whatever, but he's allowed. You know, Kanye West is a crazy black Nazi, but he's allowed. We're still going to talk about it.
Right.
You know, Marilyn Manson did some crazy shit. He has all these but we're going to allow that to be talked about.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's accepted. That we can talk about. This can be seen. But you know what? Matt Zane? No. We can't even put it out there. We're not even going to give it a chance.
Right.
That's not allowed to exist.
Yeah. And I don't want to get like, you know, political or anything like that too. But like the same thing kind of happened with Tommy Vetch, right? Like they ixnayed Tommy really bad, right? The Out of Bad Wolves, and like they really blasted him terribly.
Yeah, but they didn't blast him to the point where he doesn't have singles and tours and shows and whatever else though.
But his fighting spirit is the same as yours though. Like that's where I draw the comparison because he didn't give up. He basically gave the middle finger to the music industry, says that I'll do it on my own.
Yeah, but he had enough momentum and stuff to be able to get beyond something.
Right.
So it's a little bit different.
Correct.
I mean, you know, like I get it. I'm really controversial. I understand it, but man, it's just I really want to start doing some more updates where I talk to people, but it's so freaking hard and I'm so fucking busy. But like, I want to like really get out and tell people like Ronnie Radke. I think he's entertaining as hell. So this isn't any hate to him whatsoever.
Sure.
But dude, he's allowed to be the dissident. He's allowed to be the anti guy out there and controversial. They allow him to be that.
Right.
He's not truly being controversial. If he really was being controversial, you like look at me. I'm really the controversy. Like Rodney Radke, again, dude, like awesome. I'm actually a fan of him as a person. I don't really know the music all that much.
Right.
Not saying he's not a good singer or nothing. Again, I don't need him fucking saying shit about me. You know what I mean? But like his last videos with Marilyn Manson, another controversial guy, but God is a Weapon came out and phenomenal video, cool song. It's everywhere.
Right. And they got them working out together, right? Did you see the picture of them in the gym?
My last video I come out with, Lose Your Faith. And it is so banned. It is so feared that one of the websites, two websites posted about it, MK Ultra and Regen. Regen Magazine talked about it, but wouldn't even post the video and admitted it.
Okay.
And all of press wouldn't even acknowledge its existence. That's true controversy.
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference. those guys are allowed opposition, controlled opposition. I am true opposition.
Mm-hmm.
I came out with that video and people were like, hell no. And those were wondering, well, what the hell could it be? I actually defaced the Quran in the video.
Yeah.
It's never been done before, ever. People deface Bibles and are anti-Catholic and Christian all over the place. It's no big deal. I actually did something that was really dangerous. And even the websites were afraid to talk about it. That's the difference between me and everybody else.
Sure.
And I could go on and on and on about it. Kanye West comes out with a song called Hi Hitler, and it's everywhere. Everybody talks about it. I come out with a video 8 years ago called Kill Me, and it's banned everywhere. And it's no different. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not, and it's actually, to me, I think it's less than what Kanye West did. He's got an actual speech from Hitler in his song. I'm playing Hitler. But yet they allow him to go out, and it's like the #1 song all over the place. And my song literally gets banned 99.9% of the places. Again, dude, it's like people can say all they want. You're a piece of shit. You're a nobody, whatever. But when you get down to it, dude, there's people that are true opposition, that are truly like fought against. And then there's me. And it's hard to argue when you really get down to it. Dude, I hate to bring this up because this is like super controversial. Yeah, but I'm going to use it as an example just so people understand. You've got your alt-right people that are supposed to be like the most banned people in the world, and people argue that that's like Alex Jones, right? And they even say it, the most banned stuff in the world, the most banned this and that, right? What people don't realize is there's another guy who's alt-right who's called Nick Fuentes, okay? This dude is true alt-right. Somebody just tried to murder this motherfucker. They showed up to his house during his podcast and tried to freaking shoot him. Like, for real. Right. Like, there's differences in life, man. Yeah. You've got your Alex Joneses, and then you've got your Nick Fuentes, okay? There's opposition, then there's severe opposition. There's freaking Ronnie Radke, and then you've got Matt Zane. Right. There is a spectrum of between us that people have no idea because the press won't let you know. And a lot of people watching this right now are going to go, who the fuck's Nick Fuentes? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because he's banned from banks. He's banned from flying. They stole all his money. He's banned from YouTube, banned from everything except for like X. Right. And I don't know if you know who he is or not, but the guy, he's a freaking maniac. Yeah. Like the shit he says is insane. I don't even know if it's real, to be honest with you. Right. But it's like, I only know about him because he's true. Yeah. Like crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's, like I said, I've been a fan, and I wish you the best, right? As a fan and as a person, right? Of your artistic ability is through the roof. And I just wish that, this podcast can help and just promote you in a way that, like, because I want you to have the success and the riches, and like, you deserve it, right? Like, you put in the work and you should have that. And we talk here and it's, I just want the what's to come to be very good for you, right? Like, I want you to get what you deserve, and that's what my hope is for you. And if there's anything I could do to get you there, I would absolutely do it, because like I said, I've been a fan of the music for a long time, and I've been a fan of you, and I'm excited when you said you do the podcast. Like, I was through the roof, right? It was awesome. So I ultimately want to thank you for doing it, but like, I wish you the best, right? I and all the haters and stuff out there, like, I don't think they know the history of you, and they should, and that's kind of where I wish that you get noticed that way. Well, you said like what's in the future, and that's really honestly the future that I see for the next 10 years. All I'm going to try to do is just get the stories and get the awareness out there. That's all I'm really about right now. Yeah, I'm going to make new music still, obviously play shows, do whatever. I'm still going to do this stuff. But the main thing is to get the story, get the material, get it out. Like, that's all I'm concerned with now. So I appreciate you having me on the podcast. And I have some plans to do with your podcast, which I'll talk to you about after we're off air to help you out. But yeah, man, so that's really what I want to see happen. And that's really the goal, is just constantly just push it out there, just get it out any way possible.
That's awesome. And like I said, I wish you all the best. And obviously the project's coming out in July and you're going to be super busy, but I would love to have you on like at the end of the year or early next year and revisit everything. And hopefully, we could push all that positive energy into the universe. Cause like I said, your art is awesome. Your music is awesome. The band is awesome, right? Obviously there's been lineup changes through the history of it, but the guys you have now are solid. The music sounds great. I caught the YouTube clips of the reunion show and the comeback show, but it never really, to me, was a comeback because you never really disappeared. And like I said, I've been a fan for all that time. So, for me, it was just another Society One show, and I loved it. And that, I wish you every good thing in the world that you deserve. So
thank you. And it kind of was a comeback show because we hadn't played in 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, because we were doing the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but yeah, dude, at the end of the year, absolutely 6 months.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens, because the other project will be out. I'm sure the punk album, cover album will be out.
Awesome.
I'm sure there'll be a few more shows under the belt. There's always something happening with the band because whenever we do anything, there's just always so much drama. It's never usually good,
right.
But that's why it's so easy to make movies with us, because for whatever reason, it's just, there's just always just drama, and it's never great, but people just do not take kindly to us. It's like, when are these guys going to go away? When is it going to be done?
That sucks, because I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, what do you got coming up next? Because
my goal is I want to do this for at least, I'm going to be 51 this year, so like another 9 years. I want to at least get to 60.
Sure.
And then I'll reassess anything. But I'm committed for another 9.5 years.
That's awesome. All right, Matt. Well, thank you so much for being a guest. I really appreciate it. I know we're going on 2 hours now, and I know you're super busy, and I love doing this, and I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to have you on again. And, I'll link all your stuff in the video when it goes to YouTube, and I'll put it out where people could find you, and hopefully we get Society One, rocking and rolling again.
Fingers crossed. We can only hope.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. All right, guys. So I am the One Fun Guy podcast. This was Matt Zane. If you guys aren't familiar with Society One, you need to be. His music's awesome. He's awesome. Please link up with everything that he has going on. The movie's out. I'll put that in the description. Watch it. EverybodyDiesTheMovie.com is awesome. Matt, thank you so much for being a part of this, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.